Hello, friends. Welcome to Akulmach Live. My name is Chandrakant. Today, we would like to discuss about how countries can, resolve their issues and become instead of becoming unilateral, can become multilateral. Because world is a much smaller place, especially now after the pandemic, because of the digital media presence, and a lot of people are now communicating using digital technologies. It has been very close. We have been very close to each other, and the meaning of boundaries are almost disappearing. So I think instead of becoming unilateral, we must think in a multilateral business environment, and this is our topic of discussion today. Before we start our discussion, a word on our giveaway. We have some unique Akulmach memorabilia which will make you look outstanding. The graphics on these corporate gifts are based on the global best business practices. To become recipient of one of these gifts for free, you have to watch this video till the end and provide your valuable comments. Or you can also share your experiences. The person who makes the best comment would be chosen to become a recipient of this beautiful Akulmach gift, absolutely free, delivered to your doorsteps. The winner would also get a chance to be invited live as a distinguished panelist during our next video. What are you waiting for, friends? Please subscribe Akulmach and smash that like button. Now let's get back to our discussion. Friends, let me introduce our friend today. He's joining us from UK, Mr. Mike Bradley, Group CSO of RHF and ScaleupArena. And today we will discuss about multilateralism, a type of collaboration between countries where they team up together and solve their common issues. So without further ado, let me present Mike to you.
Good afternoon, Chandra. Good to meet up with you again. I trust you're staying safe in this difficult time, particularly in India, from what we understand.
Yes, the COVID has been spreading exponentially in India, and it has not yet reached the peak. So we have taken all the precautions. We have let go all the domestic staff, and we have reduced our social engagement to the minimum level. Uh, Converted our house sort of a jail, so to speak, if you like it, and that's how we are protecting ourselves.
Yeah, well, I think we've all been in the same boat for a long time, sort of confined to barracks, and yes, I don't envy any leader's job at this time. I think it's a very tricky world we live in.
That's right. So, but the problem in India is basically mutant, which has been found, and it is basically infecting people and making them sick, which are below 40. So this is the first time that we've got this data, because earlier the assumption was that the younger population can carry but will not get infected, will not show symptoms. But this virus, which is now we are calling it triple mutation, is showing the signs of infection in young people also. And even though it is not very severe, they survive. So survival rate is also very high. But young people can be or becoming a major carrier or a super spreader in India. Because of that, a lot of deaths have happened. People who are older, above 60 and above, because these younger people have carried the virus, and the older people actually lost their life because of that. So this is what has happened. Since last 3 weeks, as per the government tally, nearly 230,000 people have died in just last 3 weeks, and every day, I think today infection was about 350,000 new cases between yesterday and today, last 24 hours.
Yeah. So it's a very difficult situation, and I think it's quite appropriate to start our conversation around this subject because, of course, this particular challenge is one that the multilateral approach has got to help solve, and one that we have as an alliance globally to assist in this situation, because if we don't solve the problem, it could in turn become a problem for all of us. And I think this just demonstrates the fact that today, in today's world, nothing is a simple solution. It's not something that we can't unilaterally try and do anything. And so we need to recognize that just about every global challenge, be it economic, environmental, social, health, there is an international component to it. And the approach we take to solving that challenge is going to determine the effectiveness of the overall solution. So I believe that nothing demonstrates the need for a multilateral approach, a multilateralism, more than the current crisis.
Well, Mike, you are absolutely right, because when the Europe and Americas and Brazil were under a lot of stress because of the cases which they were showing a couple of months back, India actually stepped out and helped them out by giving free medicines, etc. Where whoever needed it, it's all free, and in fact, all the neighbors got multiple vials of free medicines. So India really stepped up their production facility and gave free medicines and whatever support they could do. And I think now the world is helping India by doing whatever they can, because India needs a lot of help at this point in time. And doctors are saying that the peak will happen after 3 weeks from now. So we have not yet seen the peak. So we don't know what will happen in the next 3 weeks. So a lot of help is required in terms of medical aid, I'm sure. Not so much economic, but definitely medical aid help is definitely required from other countries.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the same is true with a lot of our global challenges, Chandra. Whether they be social or environmental, there's no gain by just going on a unilateral basis. These big subjects, like how we say, stop climate change, get control of the environment, optimize the environment for now and for the future, is not something we can do as an independent group, because one country in and of itself, even of the magnitude of India and China, even if both India and China had the same environmental climate goal challenges and approach, there would still be over half the rest of the world that would not be adopting it. So we have to act as an alliance and a multilateral approach to solving the climate crisis. And the same is true in business, of course. There are challenges around how do we, particularly after the pandemic, how do we maintain the economic environments? And these situations again are interrelated. If we think about going back to the COVID vaccine scenario, there's the challenge around AstraZeneca in Europe, in the EU, I should say, not Europe, because the UK is part of Europe. But within the EU, there was a challenge around the the AstraZeneca vaccine, where in order to produce that vaccine, a lot of countries and a lot of companies across a lot of countries have had to work together in an alliance to make sure that happens, whether it be collecting raw materials to put into the vaccine, whether it be manufacturing the vaccine, whether it be distributing and logistically dispersing the vaccine, whether it be controlling the temperature environment for the vaccine to be stored. All countries have had to pull together to make that work. And where a group of countries decide to cause a challenge, that has a knock-on effect on the supply chain. So, this is a classic example of where multilateralism, I would say, has to be the goal of most of us on most situations these days. We cannot just dig our heels in, become stubborn and difficult, because actually we become part of the problem, not part of the solution.
That's right, Mike. In fact, in our business also, I think it's very true, because we cannot be, I mean, we can be nationalist, but at the same time, we have to look at the global picture and not look always inwards. We have to look at, what we have the best, and how we can supply it to my neighbor or some other country, which they can utilize it, and also in exchange get whatever technology they have, so that I benefit. So I think it's always give and take, and the world is much bigger, much smaller place right now. It used to be very big, because boundaries were so far apart, but in last
Sure.
1 year, the digital platforms have broken all boundaries. It doesn't matter if we still call our country as a boundary, that this is India, this is XYZ, but I think we are able to communicate without any boundaries. So I think it's a much smaller place now.
Correct. I think you're absolutely right. And there is a sense in which boundaries, in any case, were man-made. So in some cases they're physical, I suppose. You've got like the Himalayas, which is a bit of a natural boundary. However, whenever we started getting pencil and paper out and putting rulers onto maps and saying, well, this is where this one divides, that's when the challenges start. And I think now, every nation on earth is, virtually every nation on earth has a mix of cultures, colors, religions, ethnic values, cultural values, traditions. They're all intermingled, because people have moved all over the world now. And whereas we used to stay within our local towns and not travel much, there's an awful lot of people dispersed across the world. I was reading the other day, quite an interesting statistic, and it said that 72% of people live within 20 miles, that's what, 30 odd kilometers, of where they grew up, which is interesting, but it still means that 28% don't. So, and they're globally dispersed, and that's why the world is such a complex place now, because you've got, but it's also a benefit. You can either see that as a challenge, or you can see that as a benefit. And this is why I believe this multilateralism applies across the board, whether it be economically, socially, environmentally, because actually virtually every environment is multilateral. And it's where people work together for a common goal and towards a common objective. That is the only way to resolve society and to resolve the challenges we have. There's 0 point in us trying to be nationalistic, because we're in an international world and we all need and depend on each other. And we have to ensure we work collaboratively together, as we do with the RHF group on the ScaleupArena. The whole point is that we work together, we connect, we can communicate, we collaborate, we cooperate, and we close deals together. That's the objective of our ScaleupArena ecosystem, is to work together across traditional businesses, across tech businesses, across skills, innovators, multinationals, large SMEs and SMBs, the whole objective being that we collectively work towards a common goal, which is sustainability and success for all the component parts. And that is a multilateral approach. And that I believe is the only approach that's going to solve a lot of our problems. Take the India situation at the moment. There was a need for medical supplies and oxygen for the COVID crisis, and it was only a multilateral approach that has helped pull that together. Of course, there are going to be some issues at the side and some, vested interests that maybe conflict make that a challenge. But hopefully there will be a pressure from the rest of the alliance to say, actually, we need you to pull your part and to play your part in the solution. And that's hopefully where the, shall we say, the collective will of the majority helps to influence the perhaps rather selfish will of the minorities.
Well, you are right, Mike. I think we need to work together to solve the world's problem. And COVID is not the only problem. I think before that we had a lot of other problems, and in future also we will have more problems which we need to get together and solve. And I think one of the issue we can solve is basically drop these boundaries, because we have so many different rules and regulations which prevents any cross-border trade, taxation and things like that. Do you have an opinion on this?
Yes, I do. I tend to be a believer in free trade, because I believe free trade is the way in which we ensure that the interests of the consumer, whoever that happens to be, are met best. Because if we don't have free trade, the consumer is actually impacted, because either it's cost or lack of availability or lack of supply of particular components. This creates major challenges. And what we need to be able to do is to be able to trade in a much easier way. I mean, I was talking with a company the other day who's got a service that should be going on to ScaleupArena very soon. They help companies to employ people in different countries around the world. And of course, all the employment laws and taxes, etc., are different across the world. So you need a streamlined way to do it. But what governments should be doing is making it easy for international companies who are trying to establish a presence and to employ local people. That should be made easy by the government systems, because it's in the interests of these governments to have international companies investing in and creating employment, because ultimately those employees are going to be paying taxes locally. Those companies are going to be paying local corporation taxes, and we need to encourage that rather than discourage it. Public sector barriers to trade are a problem. It shouldn't be difficult for, say, a UK company to say, I want to go and trade with India because I've got a service and solution that people want. They shouldn't find that they've got a minefield to work through in order to set up their stall. And even worse, to then have a problem getting their returns on their investment out of the country, and I think the more barriers that are erected, the more there will be other ways that people will come up with to try and work around them. So if we erect currency barriers, for example, that's much more likely to force companies to using cryptocurrencies, over which possibly governments have no control, because they brought it on themselves. Because by making it difficult to trade in their currency, they've actually meant that people have had to find an alternative way of trading. So my view is that the governments within each country need to think in a multilateral way and say, actually, of course, we want trade, we want to sell, and we want to buy. Or we want to sell, but we also will have to buy, because that's just the way it works. So let's not erect bureaucratic barriers to control what is basically trying to create a cartel. What we have to do is remove the barriers. and say free trade is the answer. Very interesting, I think, around the EU and the UK situation is, despite all the chaos that is going on at the moment, caused by, dotted line borders in the Irish Sea, or the the fishing rights, etc., etc. The Brexit, if you want to, hate that word, but the Brexit deal that was struck was actually approved virtually unanimously by the EU Parliament the other day. I think I think it was 700 members, 32 were against, and there were a couple of abstentions. So the will of the people is to make things happen. I think sometimes the bureaucrats make that much more problematic.
Mike, you mentioned about cryptocurrency. I think I was also very fascinated by the cryptocurrency, especially because there is no dollar versus rupee, ruble versus yen, and pound versus EU. There is nothing like that. It makes it so simple. So many units you buy or sell, and you buy in cryptocurrency. It's a uniform. It's a global phenomena. What will happen if people go to Mars and set up a totally new system? And at that point in time, we will have to have a Earth currency. So I think, why wait for Mars to be habited? We can start now and let Mars be a different, different planet, different country by itself. You have any opinion on that?
Well, personally, I think people who want to go to Mars are very welcome. I much prefer mountains and green grass and blue skies and the things I can see and touch and hear on Earth. But I guess some people will want to do it. Let them go. But in terms of the currency impact, I think one of the challenges around this is, and I suppose if you look at the EU again and the euro, okay, that is probably the most common currency across a group of countries up until now. But there's always a challenge around what is the value of the euro versus the local currency. So, for example, if you have Germany, which has lots of rules and a sensible system of taxation for their country, but then also within it you have a country that has a more laissez-faire attitude to taxation, then the value of that currency is only based upon, presumably, the largest influencer of that currency. But there's not on a parity, because when you buy a car in Germany, it might cost you 50,000 euros, but relative to the standard of living in another country, that 50,000 euros could be the same value as a house. And so I think with these, there's an attached value in the local country that can be different across the group. And that, I think, is the challenge with cryptocurrency, because a cryptocurrency, or buying something on crypto in America, would have a different local standard of living value than if it was bought from India. And that, I think, is going to be a major challenge. The benefits are obviously taxation, means exchange rates. There is none, so that makes it easier. However, there's still going to be a local attached value to the thing that is being bartered or exchanged for this currency. How do you create parity over that situation?
Well, Mike, I somewhat agree with you. It's a challenge, but let's look at the economy as we know it today. a couple of years back, before England started colonizing the world, there was no cross currency. There was no currency as such. So you give me UK pounds and I'll give you Indian rupees. There was nothing like that. It was all gold. So the current system is based on how much gold you have, and how much rich you are is the amount of gold your country has. So I think we need to get rid of that method and embrace crypto now, because I think gold has zero value. I mean, if you look at it, who cares about gold anymore? But if you convert your currency into crypto, and that is where the starting point would be, whatever value you have. For example, you give an example of buying a Mercedes in Germany versus buying a house in France. The cost probably would be the same. So you end up buying crypto with the same ratio, and that determines that you are a rich nation or a poor nation. Can't we do that and continue forward as into multilateral world?
I think one of the challenges with that is, of course, who is in control of the crypto. That is, of course, another challenge, and how much does it cost to generate and utilize crypto? And is crypto the right thing to use? Because it consumes enormous amounts of computer resource, presumably electricity and other resources to create crypto. Maybe crypto is a common means of exchange, maybe, that is independent of any particular country. However, somebody somewhere is going to be in control of that, or an alliance is going to be in control of that. And as we can see with the way, let's go back to the EU, the way the EU is managing their COVID crisis and vaccinations, etc., doesn't always go quite as sweetly as you would like. So I think the problem is man is going to let it down. It's a great ideological concept, but because of the resources and who has governance over it, there is a potential risk that either it's managed with vested interests or gets into the wrong hands. And that is the danger with a common global platform, because going back to multilateralism, is the goal common? If the goal is common, yes, but my guess would be if you've got 150 countries, there would be 150 different goals. And also you've got 150 different leaders, and next year, 25 of those leaders might change and their goals will change. So I think multilateralism in a common global currency is a major problem. And I can't see, if I'm honest, I can't see that being a solution. I welcome other people's views on that as a result of this. If they've got a better, they have a magic wand and can come up with a solution to how all these diverse goals and national goals and sort of alliance areas goals fall within that global currency, maybe there is a solution. But like I said, for me, resources and governance in that environment are a major problem.
Well, Mike, I vote for cryptocurrency simply because I'm a man of software, and I know for sure that the crypto uses an algorithm which is kept secret in a vault. But
You've got a lot of them, Chandra, have you?
I mean, you have a point. Somebody has to govern it, so we need to iron that portion out. But I think you made a very good point that we are discussing something very, very serious today, and I expect viewers to interact with us, give their comments, and any suggestions they have to increase or to drop our trade barriers. I think you are more than welcome. And based on your comments, we will include you in our next show with Mike Bradley, where you can come as a distinguished panelist and we can have a discussion directly with Mike, and then you can throw your ideas and we can discuss it openly live on Akulmach
We
Live.
can multilaterally try and solve the problem.
Absolutely, Mike. So thank you so much for coming to the show today and discussing this very, very serious issue. Hopefully, we'll be around even next week and beyond that also, because Corona is increasing. We don't know what will happen, but I'll catch you next week once again in our show.
Thank you very much, Chandra. Been a pleasure to talk to you as always.